But now I don't see those cobbles and curbs. I don't hear the blues anymore.
Rough Trade is giving away a third of the first 3 months of the Rough Trade Club plus new music membership exclusively to 101 Part-Time Jobs listeners. Become a member of Rough Trade Club New Music and you'll receive the Rough Trade Album of the Month straight to your door every month on exclusive vinyl pressing with exclusive bonus material. Club members have received exclusive pressings of albums from Sufjan Stevens, Sprints, The Last Dinner Party, Julie Byrne and Over Mono, just to name a few, this past year alone. Sign up using the promo code CLUB101POD and you'll get the Rough Trade Album of the Month, English Teacher's excellent debut album, This Could Be Texas, on exclusive Galaxy Gold for a third of the usual price. Here's English Teacher on a recent episode of 101.
How many opportunities do you get to write a debut album and have all of this, sport behind us? I don't know, I really like the idea of holding the bar as being like classic songs.
You only get one shot at a debut.
Don't want the album of the month but still want all the benefits? Sign up to the standard tier using Club 101 Pod and you'll still get the first month free. You'll also get free shipping on all orders, 10% off the bar and on secondhand vinyl in store, and exclusive access to sold out Rough Trade events. So don't hang around. Go to roughtrade.com/club and sign up with the code CLUB101POD. That's CLUB101POD and claim money off the album of the month, English Teachers This Could Be Texas, today. This offer's available to UK residents only. Do you play in bands? I did for the longest time. And I wish that I knew that DistroKid was a thing. I don't even think it existed back then. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. When you get DistroKid, you can see a DistroKid bank and withdraw your earnings. You get notified when you've earned royalties and you can withdraw via the app. And you can even check your streaming stats on Spotify and Apple. Get 30% off your first year on DistroKid by going to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off for your first year. That's not bad. We know it's a tough world out there. Why don't you make it easier for yourself? And to get 30% off that free year as an artist, where you get 100% of your royalties and earnings, go to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. All right, stay with me. I'll be right back after this.
Sephora stores are everywhere you are. So just pop in when you need a brown lip to match your 90s playlist, a confidence boost before your interview, or a last-minute gift for mom's birthday. There's always a Sephora near you. Just pop in. Use our store locator to find your local Sephora or Sephora at Kohl's.
This episode is brought to you by Bumble. So, you want to find someone you're compatible with, specifically someone who's ready for a serious connection, totally open to having kids in the future, is a tall, rock-climbing Libra, and loves rom-coms with vegan pizzas on Tuesdays just as much as you do. Bumble knows that you know exactly what's right for you. So whatever it is you're looking for, Bumble's features can help you find it. Date now on Bumble.
Hello, all right. Welcome to 101 Part-Time Jobs podcast with me, Giles Bidder. It's where I speak to bands and artists about how they've got through it, being in charge of their own art, self-managing, self-tour managing, self-producing, looking after their art, protecting it, making sure that they're doing what they want to do, going in the right direction, and when they're not, working it out. Everyone's got a different story. All the bands, all the artists that we're listening to at home, on the radio, live, they're all going through different experiences. And 101 Part-Time Jobs is the podcast where we hear about those experiences. Today's episode is with Mykki Blanco, the rapper, performance artist, poet, and activist from the States, who British GQ Style called one of the most arresting left field artists to have emerged in the last decade. That's an accolade. Her EP, Postcards from Italia, is out tomorrow on the legendary Transgressive Records. brilliant record label in London that have put out so much great stuff over the years. Some favourites of mine include Johnny Flynn and Marika Hackman. And this EP is pretty up, as you can hear from the track beneath this. Holidays in the Sun is the song that's come out. The rest of it is going to be a surprise for tomorrow morning. So you can tune in at midnight tonight or tomorrow morning and give Postcards from Italia a blast. Thank you so much for listening in. Thank you, Jodie, for setting this up. If you're a fan of this show, of this conversation, please consider leaving a review or a rating, whether you're listening on Apple or Spotify. And if you can subscribe to the show, that does absolute wonders for me in 101 Part-Time Jobs. Yep, if you're able to leave a rating or a review and subscribing's really the biggest one. If you're able to do that, thank you so much. Before we get into this chat, I'm here with Rebecca from Eka, multi-instrumentalist, plays piano, plays saxophone, also a brand ambassador for Ampolo, which is a great brand new free app for musicians. All right, Rebecca, could you tell us a little bit about Ampolo?
Yeah, I've been using Ampolo, which is an app that came out earlier this year, actually. Smart with its AI demixing tools. So in under a minute, it will completely demix a track, which means I can take out the drums, the bass, vocals, whatever it is I want to be trying my own part over. Whereas before, I would be Googling chords and then on YouTube Googling the song and kind of flicking between the tabs while setting up my instrument and trying to practice along. It all happens in the app. And then I'm posting it to a feed if I want that social aspect of it, but I don't have to. I've been spending many hours just practicing parts and thinking, wow, this is so easy, play again and again to make sure I nail that bit.
So it's a practice tool. You can film yourself. It's free. It's out there. Ampolo. You can download it today. All right now on 101 Part-Time Jobs, it's Mykki Blanco. 101 Part-Time Jobs. Great. Well, good to hear you're having a relaxed time in Denmark. Well, what's the kind of place that what's the place like? Is it a good chill week so far? Is it a nice room? Is it a nice area?
Yeah, it's on a peninsula on the mainland, Aarhus. So it's the second largest city. I mean, I don't know that much about it, but I don't know. I'm gonna go to a botanical garden today. I'm starting grad school at the beginning of September. So
great.
I'm just kind of like winding down out of like holiday mode.
Yeah. And what are you going to study at grad school?
I'm going to do a Master of Fine Arts. So like mixed media painting, basically kind of things that I was more interested in at the very beginning of kind of my career before music kind of like took over. Right.
What kind of artwork? Is it painting? Is it, and what kind of paint? Is it watercolor? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really interested in, I mean, when I was first in art school, I was really focused on like video and performance, but now I'm really interested in like painting and mixed media work. But mostly kind of like painting. Great.
Good to hear. That's going to be funny going back. We have that kind of thing, don't we? It's like a subconscious. It's so in our psyche. We have this kind of quote unquote set time to be studying, right? And then you kind of get to the outside world, like the working world, and you never really necessarily think you're going to go back to learn something, which is ridiculous. I'd like to think that I learn something new every week, every day.
No, I mean, it's, how can I put this? It's like I haven't been in uni in 17 years, so I feel like I'm just going to get this like refresher on like a lot of like contemporary like discourse around art. And I don't know, like I think that generationally I probably have, even though I mean I'm like also a person that keeps up with just like contemporary conversations around art and politics and culture. But I think that generationally you always kind of like have kind of like this marker of about a set of beliefs that your particular peer set kind of like inhabit. And so I'm really interested to kind of know, I'll be in, I'm doing an MFA, so it's not like a PhD program. I'll be I mean, I hopefully will do a PhD program afterwards, but with this MFA program, I'll be with a lot of people, who are, later millennials and, some Gen Zs.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting for me to kind of tap into like what their kind of like cultural, concerns are and their concerns and discourse around art. So I think it's going to be good. I mean, I want to keep up with the times.
101 part-time jobs. This podcast thing I've got going on, it means different things for different people. And hearing you talk about that, it makes me think about how it's about freedom. Being an artist is about having a good amount of freedom. And in this kind of scenario, in the context here, it's about being able to try different things. I mean, we're so kind of brought up, and you kind of touched on it then, like generationally, there are these habits and there are these touching points of what you should do, quote unquote.
Right.
And, for lots of bands and lots of artists, it's about, do the first album and then you're on this kind of treadmill of touring, writing, releasing, touring, writing, releasing. And I think something that I'm most fascinated about is that journey is different for everybody, and everyone should feel like they have a good amount of freedom to mix it up and change it and, go in some directions one year and another direction the next year or that month or the next month. I mean, it makes me excited that like now is very much a time where like globalization really set into this generation in the way that you can, move to different countries and you can travel so much and you can have sort of 10 different careers in your lives, much different to the generations before us where, my parents, friends' parents, people get jobs at aged 18 and stay there for the rest of their lives. We're in this time now where we can be so much more flexible.
No, I mean, I 100% agree. I mean, trying to get, a lot of people that are my mother. I mean, my mother's a baby boomer. She had me when she was like 32, and trying to get her to go on a vacation is exhausting. And it's not because she doesn't like to relax. It's because like the concept that, this is also a very American thing. The concept that like you're not always working is just like lost on her.
And it's, what does that mean to be an artist in the 21st century? I mean, a lot of your fans, a lot of people listening to your music and people finding out about you is how kind of completely yourself you've been. And I think that's interesting in the world of kind of work. And, I'm talking discipline. I'm talking, trying to balance making money at the beginning of being Mykki Blanco and the beginning of your artistic journey. I mean, looking back now, right, reflecting since, the first record came out in 2012, didn't it? So you've had a long time to kind of work that out and think about it.
Right. I mean, my career really takes place at this cultural, acceleration point where, when I was a new artist, there were so many things about politics of my identity, the lyrical content of my music, the visual, the visual identity also that I was portraying that felt very taboo, that felt very transgressive, and very progressive for that moment. But what's interesting is that moment, especially, people within my own peer set, I was 25, 26 years old. I mean, they were I think that one of the reasons why I was so successful is because they were my generation, my peer group were very ready for an artist like me. And my success coincided with the proliferation of social media as we know it today. So it was through Tumblr, it was through, Twitter, it was through, Facebook events, Instagram, where all of a sudden people all over the world could say, hey, we like this feminist punk band, or we like this new grungy, indie band, or, we want this, this queer rapper. And like, hey, music venues, hey, booking agents, let's make this show happen. And so, at this time, there definitely was a slew of independent venues, and it was this birth of, I don't want to say birth, because that could be probably chronologically incorrect, but it was, I would say artists at different tiers, I think for the first time, were really being booked globally and really being able to kind of like to flourish financially. I mean, I faced so much homophobia and transphobia in the United States. And I remember, having a conversation with my manager, and it was like, hey, people kept on, when I first started out, they tried to break me so hard into the world of hip hop. And, after a few months, I wasn't dumb. I was just like, this is never going to happen. And I was like, and also it's like, I don't want to do any more of these awkward gigs. I remember I did a song with A-Track. And then after I did that song, A-Track invited me to Fool's Gold. They used to have this thing called Day Out. It was like a huge music event they would do, almost like a mini festival. And before I even came on stage, the crowd just looked at me and almost started to boo based on how I was dressed.
Wow.
And so I remember telling my management, I was like, I don't need to do this. When I go to Europe, not only do I have fun, not only do I have fun, but people are enjoying what I'm doing. People are more open-minded in all these different countries. And then I go to South America and it's the same thing. And then I go to South Africa and it's the same thing. And then I go to Asia and it's the same thing. And so, I really built my career globally. That is how people, know who I am in a logistical sense.
And knowing who your audience is such a huge part. You're chatting to people online. You can see where they're from. You can see what they're into. You can see, their style. And I imagine as an artist, when you start connecting with those fans, you really start to build your own world. And you don't have to speak to a specific type of genre or a kind of industry or different artist or a different fan group, a fan set that traditionally maybe you'd feel like pressured or feel like you'd have to speak to them. The kind of globalization of it, like you said, has kind of opened up that opportunity to find your people ultimately.
Yeah, and then in the beginning of my career, my fans and I were the same age. As I've gotten older, it's been interesting because my fans have gotten younger, which people tell me is actually a good thing. But in the beginning of my career, my fans, quotation marks, and I were all the same age. So, every concert, every interaction, felt like a big party. And then also, this really coincided with me discovering my gender identity, exploring my gender, this very big kind of like psychological, spiritual moment that was happening for me that also was happening for so many other people, other queer people. Within my peer set. And so I remember having so many open dialogues on Facebook, so many conversations, on Twitter. And it for me, it never felt like these are my fans. Like it always felt like I was in open dialogue with my generation.
I think having something, on one hand, there's like a need to create. There's like a fire in your belly. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think like on the other hand, that is different to having something to say. And in our generation, with this kind of, 50 years ago in our parents' generation, I'm not sure if my parents knew anyone who was gay. And as a teenager growing up, there has been this bloomage of people, and it comes along with all the dark side and the light side. There's body dysmorphia, but there's also kind of more more access to party, basically. You know, there's more light in there. There's more joy. All of those things come together. This is very much like this is a new thing for the world, and lots of people obviously can't handle that because they don't like change. But this is our generation. This is our generation of acceptance. This is our generation of progression. You know, having that to talk about in your lyrics and in your music, it's a very powerful thing.
I've been someone that was a part of this kind of like cultural acceleration point where, unfortunately, you know, well, okay, before I say unfortunately, it's kind of like, you know, when people consider you a pioneer, it's because, you've helped usher in something, right? You've helped pioneer something. You were the first of something, or if you weren't the first, you were definitely one of the ones that made a very huge impact on whatever the current situation is. And so, you know, for me, sometimes, even though I really appreciate, and I appreciate when people understand the contributions that, you know, I made in honestly choosing to be myself. I think that it becomes also, you know, something very bittersweet because, you know, it's, you know, and I'm talking just logistics. I'm not talking about talent. I'm not talking about creativity, but, you know, it's not lost on me that someone like Frank Ocean and Lil Nas were both artists that the world perceived as heterosexual people when they, you know, first began making music. And then it was only after 1 or 2 years did they come out, you know, as openly queer after kind of already gaining the acceptance and the love of most of their fan base. And for me and the other artists, you know, in 2012 and 2013, who were always openly queer, who also had music at that time in those moments that was wildly popular, you know, we didn't get to experience that. You know, we didn't get to experience what it was to have mainstream acceptance for literally just being straight, and then kind of having this like after effect of like, oh, okay, now I've made a few hits and now this is who I am, and you know, and so and then also kind of like that wave of having people be like, oh, well, now we also have sympathy for you, and you know, it's a whole kind of like, it's a whole certain kind of construct that we were more, I'm sorry, it's the truth, we were just more radical, and you know, we didn't play by the rules, and then, you know, afterwards, you know, have a pity party, and then afterwards be like, okay, this is who we are. You know, that was never the paradigm for me and those people that were making music out of New York City in that moment, or even an artist like Big Frida, who's continued to have mainstream success today.
Were you ever tempted to play the game and like hide your identity? What were the pressures of that like when you were starting out?
No, because I come from this very like art freak, noise music, anarchist punk background. So like I really stumbled into being a musician. I did not, when I started making music, it was supposed to be a part of this like art project. And it wasn't until my first manager had come to like a few of my performances that he asked me to take a meeting with him. And he was like, I feel like you're making music and you don't realize you're making music. And I was like, oh, maybe. I was like, yeah, this is just a part of like a project that I'm doing. You know, I'm like documenting it and like, you know, and then I'll go on to do like another performance project. So like, I didn't write my first song until I was 25. As a kid, I was really into writing, creative writing. I was really into like fantasy games. I was really into theater. In high school, I was more into theater, and then I got, you know, more into like this kind of like anarchist, kind of like crust punk like movement. I was part of this like, you know, this youth voice group, and got really into like feminism and kind of like zine culture, and also at that time hardcore. Even though I was never really into hardcore music, I would go to all the shows, and you know, I knew the bands, and that was also just kind of like, that's what some of my friends were into. So So even, I listen to hip hop by default of like, loving people like Missy Elliott and Eminem and, you know, but these were also very like, zeitgeist artists. I mean, even though these artists actually, when you think about it, were quite progressive, they were also mainstream artists at that time. So it's kind of like, I really stumbled into being a musician. Had it not been for my first manager, I truthfully really do not believe that I would have gotten there on my own as far as like being like, this is like, I'm a songwriter. I mean, it was my first manager, Charlie, that even paired me with a producer. One of the first producers that Charlie paired me with was Arca when she was still a freshman at NYU. And they had linked up. And so, one of my first songs ever, you can find it on YouTube. It's called Join My Militia. It's like produced by like a baby Arca in 2013 or 2012. So yeah, like hiding who I was never a part of like the equation. And I just, I entered the industry in such an organic way that, I was having this conversation the other day where when you look at kind of like, if you listen to my music from like 2012, 13, 14, and then you listen to, or even 15, whatever, and then you listen to, the two albums that I released after the pandemic, which was, Broken Hearts and Beauty Sleep in 2021, and then Stay Close to Music in 2022, you hear distinctly the maturity and the progression of someone over, a 10-year period. And so since I literally did not start even making, music until I was 25, when I listen to this kind of like progression, and when I can kind of mark this chronology, it really is like the birth of a musician. It's not like I had started making music when I was like 15 or like I was some bedroom producer. So it's like when I look at that 10-year period, it's like yeah, like this is what, this organic process really is the reality of my life. And yeah.
Growing up and being involved in those youth groups and the anarchist groups and going to see hardcore bands, and I'm from a similar kind of thing in London, growing up with hardcore and ska and sound systems. I'd go into those places, and yeah, it was definitely a social life, but it was also kind of a reason to exist without exaggerating too much, because I didn't want to go to the rubbish pubs, and I didn't want to go to the naff club nights that were happening, with the like the rest of kind of, I guess, my high school was going to, and not to just kind of blasé say that everyone was doing that. But for me, getting into punk and hardcore, it was like, okay, this is a world that I could exist in, and I could see a future in. And I think one thing that's really interesting about that is that it gives you an alternative. It means you don't have to go through the traditional route of studying and then getting a job, which was very much what my parents did and what my siblings have done. And that was really exciting. It was a subversive, interesting way to live.
Right. And go ahead.
And well, was that something did that give you that oomph, that impetus to think, okay, yeah, I can be an artist. There is another way to live. Because look, I still have that today. I'm 32, but I still have that thing where I'm like, oh, maybe I should kind of look at this kind of, safer route of life. What was your journey with that? What was your thinking with that?
Okay, so it's funny that you asked that question, because this is something that I've like talked about like in therapy. So I knew, I had this innate sense very, very, very early on that I was not going to have a career like other people. And I didn't know what that was going to be. I didn't know if that was going to be like an actor in a theater troupe. I didn't know if that, like I said, I was I was obsessed with researching contemporary artists. People that most people my age would have no idea who they are. I mean, I was obsessed with like the art career of like Yoko Ono, and like I remember when no one knew who like Yayoi Kusama was, and people like artists like Kai Althoff, and just I would read and read and read and read because I thought these people made cool work, but I didn't understand at that time how artists, especially artists that weren't painters or sculptors, sold work. I didn't understand how it worked, but I would read a lot of biographies. It's so funny. I mean, someone that I was really obsessed with at this time, because they were like this indie movie star, was someone like Vincent Gallo, and I would read about like Vincent Gallo's biography, and I would read about like Basquiat's biography, and I ran away from home actually to New York City when I was 16 years old, and that was its own experience, and I stayed up there probably for about 2 months and then came home. And that was like a crash course in reality, because I had like only, I'd only lived, and I'd only lived in the countryside, and then I actually also only lived in kind of like a suburb. So, that was its own crash course,
wow.
In a certain kind of reality. But, I remember guidance counselors used to really freak me out because, they would try to like almost like fear monger and scare and scare tactic me into saying, well, no, I'm going to study this and I'm going to do this. And they would, I was always horrible at math. And I had this one counselor that would be like, if you really don't get better at math, I don't know how you're going to make it through college. And, I would tell her, I would say, because I was smart enough by this point to know this. And I was like, well, I'm going to go to art college where there is no math. And she was like, no, she was like, what college is there no math? And I said, well, no, there are colleges where there is no math. And I was like, where this is going to have to be the last time that I'll ever have to study geometry or algebra or trigonometry. And, so I had a very self-assured, very defiant attitude, but half of that I think was naive arrogance, and the other half was that I would read a lot, I would research a lot, because I did have this inner anxiety of like, okay, like I do not want to be like everybody else. How can I make sure that like I'm able to survive? Because I also one thing about when you hang out in the whole like anarchist kind of like crust punk scene as a teenager, you kind of like are like, okay, so like this is cool now, but like I don't want to be like I already knew I didn't want to be like an older person like eating out of the dumpster, like it's like I already knew that like I didn't want to be like an older person, and like a shitty, like living in like a shitty squat, and kudos to those people that that really embody those values for their entire lives. But like for me, kind of being in that scene really young, I was like, okay, this is like cool, but like I kind of like this isn't like gonna be my vibe forever.
At some point, you've got to get a proper leash for your dog.
Yeah, and just like I like never. It's like I was never so into just like when we would crash at the different punk houses, like I was like never so into like, sleeping on like the most disgusting couch you've like ever seen. And like,
it's funny. I'm with you. I love reading biographies because biographies give you like proof. It's like proof of concept that when you learn about the way someone else has done something or has made a success in their own definition of success, that's infinitely inspiring because you take from it what works for you. It's very interesting. It seems like a lot of the most successful people in music, sure, but also film and art, people have come from these very DIY kind of culture focused backgrounds. Now, I'm not to say that there's nothing conceited about that. There's nothing cynical about that. I think it's more to do with the facts of when you learn that people are what it's about, people is the value, and learning to do things yourself. That is a very strong foundation on which to create something beautiful.
No, I mean, yeah, there are people, artists, someone like Vaginal Davis and, you know, I mean, even, great, even the greats, people like, James Baldwin. It's like, someone like James Baldwin inspired me so much because they were this first example for me of like, what it was to be a Black expatriate. Um, and to kind of say, no, I actually don't agree with the values of my country. I can go live somewhere else. That is a very radical idea because most people don't ever do that in their lives. Most people don't ever, if they leave their hometown, they move to the biggest city, or they definitely never leave their country. So, this idea that like you could form another life, outside of a place that doesn't share your values with another place that might share more of your values. Someone like great James Baldwin, which is obviously one of the masters, one of the greats. I mean, that also for me was a very radical concept, an idea.
It's inspiring, isn't it? And I was going to say it's about being brave, but I think even by thinking I'm going to be brave, that already it starts putting up a little wall between you and what you want to do. Like really, like we're all capable of doing these next steps, these breadcrumb trail. It's like if you want to, like working in music's a very difficult thing. And yes, it's very much about like luck and timing. You can also do as much research. You can always do more research. For a long time, I had 2 years of thinking, oh my God, my band's finished. I have no idea what to do. And I stumbled upon a community radio station and that changed my life because that's what I do now. Yes, it was luck. And yes, it was like good timing. I could have also Googled, London music organizations. You know what I mean? So it's always worth bearing in mind that we can always kind of do more to inform ourselves.
Well, one of the careers that I'm really interested in and I could see myself because of my network being quite good at this. So, excuse how controversial this sounds, but in about like 2018. In 2018, Kanye West had hired me to be one of the people that was helping build his like private art library in Calabasas. And so I was doing other stuff. I was doing other stuff for him at that time, but this role of being his like art book buyer is something that I was really good at. And so that's kind of like what I ended up doing for like 5 months. And so through doing that, all of a sudden I found out about this whole entire kind of like rare art book network from Tokyo to Paris to Chicago to New York to Los Angeles. And so I've really considered, honestly, obviously I'm in this grad program, but there was an antique book seminar that was like 3 weeks at this like school in Colorado. That's like one of the premier kind of like get your feet wet, like, where you get to kind of be side by side and take all these not courses, but all these seminars with like people who have been rare book dealers for years. And I didn't do it this summer, but I think I'm going to 100% do it next summer because it's like, I thought about it with my network. If I really, really, really learned how to do this, I could definitely see myself as like a rare book dealer.
Brilliant. I mean, that's the kind of thing that it doesn't exactly come to mind as like a job that someone does. That's really cool. And I guess my point in thinking there is that there are lots of these different kind of roles and careers that we don't even really necessarily know about until we hear of them or accidentally kind of stumble upon it. That's really great. That's really exciting.
Do I think I'd be able to do it like full time? No. But like, somehow having my career in art and music also self-finance this other hobby that then once it, took off could finance itself.
Yeah.
It's like to me, that would be like so cool because I do love books. I like I said, I grew up in libraries. I grew up, kind of like, for reading for me was also this job of like a lot of self-affirmation. So yeah, I think it'd be pretty, I'm 40 in 4 years. So I really think it would be like really sexy decade to be like a book dealer in my 40s.
Big time. Big time. We've got 5 minutes left. I just want to mention Postcards from Italia. Really excited about that EP. Holidays in the Sun just came out. Really excited about it. Just wanted to get it out there. I mean, you must be really excited about it.
Yeah, I'm excited just because like it's the last batch of music that was created with the body of work that was Stay Close to Music last year and Broken Hearts and Beauty Sleep the year before. So it's just like it's a fun EP, and sometimes an EP is just so nice because you're like, okay, it's this last brushstroke, it's like this last little hurrah. And I'm really happy that this EP came together because all the songs, I mean, I think there's like one kind of sad song in there, but all the rest of the songs are pretty vibey. And, I don't know. The album that I released last year was very melodic, but it was very contemplative. It was very slow. It was a lot of down tempo stuff. So it feels nice to kind of like release, something that's like literally just for fun.
Yeah. Very up. We got just 3 minutes left. Thank you so much, Mykki. I've really enjoyed this chat. I hope you have too. I've had a lot of fun. Thank you for it.
No, I've had a lot of fun as well. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Oh. I like to ask, I've always kind of fucked up at work. I've always kind of dropped things when I've been working in service jobs. I've always kind of misheard my boss and kind of done it too quickly and messed up. Do you have any, I'm putting you on the spot here massively, but do you have any kind of anecdotes of kind of messing up at work in your day job in the past?
I think the biggest thing that I've probably done, that's the biggest mess up in my career, is probably saying things I shouldn't have said on Twitter.
We'll leave it at that.
I think that, I think in the early years, just saying things I shouldn't have said on Twitter.
Brilliant. Mykki, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your trip and looking forward to seeing you. I'll come say hi next time we're in the same spot.
Thank you so much. You have a wonderful day too, yeah?
So there was Mykki Blanco here on 101 Part-Time Jobs. I really enjoyed that chat. Mykki was really brilliant. Great to learn about her history in anarchist punk. And something that we forget is how much the internet changed DIY music culture. So good to hear those stories. Her EP, Postcards from Italia, is out tomorrow on Transgressive. Go give it a listen, give it a buy. Thank you for listening. I'll be back tomorrow with Australia's The Paper Kites. See you then.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.